Hey, this is Doug Hamp with a devotional moment. We are in Luke chapter 6, and we're looking at that question that Jesus asked about why do you make a big deal of what your brother is doing when you yourself are doing that same thing. It's the basic comparison of the speck in your brother's eye, and there's a plank in your own. Jesus asks, why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the plank in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, Brother, let me remove the speck that is in your eye, when you yourself do not see the plank that is in your own eye? Hypocrite, first remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck that is in your brother's eye. Now, this is challenging because so many of us become really expert at finding fault with others. We are so good at saying, hey, there's something wrong with what you're doing. And it's possible that what we're seeing is true. That's the challenge, that there just might be a speck in our brother's eye. And that church across the street might be teaching the wrong doctrine. That coworker might be doing it the wrong way or have a bad attitude. Or your boss might have inequalities and he's not being fair and all these different things. Or, maybe your mother really is being nicer to your sister than she is to you. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and we can truly find fault with anybody. And I'll tell you, people become expert at it. I went through that phase of life, and I'm not sure I'm completely over it either. But I know that I have to totally and always safeguard my thoughts, my attitude, my heart from going down that path. Because if I go down that path, it will consume me. It will take over, and I will continue to find fault with everybody. And I'll tell you, you become expert until you're the only person left who doesn't really have any faults. I mean, you've got a few minor ones, but compared to everybody else, you're doing pretty awesome. Of course, I'm being facetious, but that's the kind of attitude, and it's very subtle, that starts to get into our souls. It starts to get in there and just start to wind its way into our hearts. It burrows in like a little worm that gets in there and it just takes over until we don't even realize that it's in us. So what's the solution for this? Well, the solution, first of all, is sometimes just to button your lips. But secondly, we can, instead of being critical and being experts at finding fault with others, we encourage others, we praise others. Sometimes you have to just look, say, how can I praise this person? Instead of finding fault with this person, you've got to find a way to praise that person. And I'll tell you, it doesn't have to be the person that you really don't like. It doesn't have to be that boss you can't stand. It might be somebody in your own home. It might be your spouse. It might be your parents. It might even be yourself. That's a possibility as well. Sometimes we self-deprecate. We're telling ourselves how we are the worst person in the world, how we're so stupid, we're so ugly, we're such a nobody, and nobody cares. But all the time that we're doing that, we're really saying, I sure wish I were somebody. And we're trying to compensate for this empty feeling. The only way to combat that empty feeling, it's not by psychotherapy. You're going and sitting on a couch and telling all of your woes. It doesn't work. What you've got to do is you have to start praising others, because as long as your focus is here, you're going to feel really lousy. But when you start to put your focus out and you start to encourage others and praise other people and bless other people and help and encourage and exhort other people, then your attitude will start to change, because you'll no longer be focused in on yourself. When you're focused in on yourself, then everybody else is wrong about something. As a pastor, one of the scariest things that I can have is when somebody comes up after the service and they say, Pastor, I have the gift of discernment. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, this should be interesting. And they start telling me how their gift of discernment helps them to see the fault in all these other ministries. And then they say, but you're so much better. And I'm like, thanks. And why am I hesitant? Because if they're finding fault with all these other people, it might just be a matter of time before they start finding fault with me. So I want to be very careful. I want us to encourage each other. I want us to bless our enemies. Jesus said to love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. And again, that seems kind of tough. Bless my enemies? Are you kidding? Well, again, what it does is it gets the focus off of you and gets it onto others. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody else has it right and that, maybe I don't have a correct point sometimes and maybe the guy across the street is wrong sometimes. It's not looking at that objectively, but we're saying, do I need to continue to find fault? Can I, instead of criticizing and complaining about that person, can I in some way find something good about that person? Can I encourage that person? At the very least, can I pray that God's hand would be on that person in a very special and good way instead of a bad way? Because what we do is we go around and we're using our tongues to curse people. Now, we may not come out and say, I'm cursing you. Few of us would actually do that. But we do it through the way we talk, through the murmuring, the bickering, the backbiting, and here's one of the worst of all, the slandering. Now, what is slander? Slander is when you are basically pretending to speak good about somebody, or you're not saying something bad, but you're saying things that get in, little rumors, a little bit of gossip, a little bit of changing the story, twisting it just a little bit, or creating doubt. You know who was a master at that? Well, of course, Satan, right? And it only makes sense because his very name, devil, actually means the slanderer. The word diabolos in Greek, it literally means to throw something across, but the basic meaning of diabolos is the slanderer. And that is exactly what he is. If you check out Ezekiel 28, we'll look at that in another study. But in Ezekiel 28, it talks about the multitude of his slanderings and how he was the slanderer. And what did he do back in the garden? He slandered God's character. He didn't come right out and say, you know what, God is really awful and you shouldn't listen to him and you should break his laws. He didn't do that. He created just a little bit of doubt about God in the minds of Adam and Eve to where they started to then take that and they took that juicy morsel and said, yeah, maybe we should take matters into our own hands. And you know the story, right? They obviously blew it, but they listened to a false report about God's good character. That's essentially what slander is. And I'll tell you, every time that we're out there saying something about another person who are all our brothers, right? We all come from the same family, Adam and Eve, who we were made by God. If we're out there slandering, we're picking on our brother. We're finding fault with our brother when we should be focused on us. You know why? Because we cannot change anybody else. We can only change ourselves. We can't make anybody else do anything. We have to look right here and we look in the mirror and say, what can I do with this guy here or this woman here? How can I be a better person today? How can I be an encouragement to other people today? That's where we need to spend our time. That's where our focus should be, not on finding fault with others, but on encouraging them, on helping them. And let's be really disciples of Jesus. Instead of criticizing all day, let's see if we can't be a blessing to other people. I hope this has helped you today. Go ahead and subscribe, like it if you can, and share it with somebody who needs to hear this. And again, that guy across the street needs to hear this. Maybe you need to hear it first, but maybe you can think of another person who might be blessed by this as well. Take care until next time. God bless.